Hey everyone. Tonight we're venturing deep into the Star Wars universe to uncover one of its most forbidden and haunting mysteries. We're going to explore the lost Sith prophecies and ancient rituals that were buried in the darkest corners of the galaxy, where even the most powerful Sith lords feared to tread. These are secrets that have been whispered about in the shadows for millennia, prophecies so dangerous that entire worlds were destroyed to keep them hidden. So before we begin this journey into the dark side together, take a moment to hit that like button if you're ready for tonight's epic adventure. And don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy these deep explorations into the Star Wars universe. Drop a comment and let me know what part of the world you're listening from. I love seeing our global community come together for these stories. Now, get comfortable. Maybe dim those lights. Settle into your favorite spot, and prepare yourself for a tale that spans thousands of years and reaches into the very heart of the Force itself. Long ago, in the forgotten reaches of the Outer Rim, there existed a world that even the ancient star maps refused to name. The Sith called it Car Delba's Shadow, though its true designation was lost when the last of the Sith archivists took their secrets to the grave. On this world, beneath crimson skies that never knew the touch of natural sunlight, stood a temple complex so vast and so ancient that it predated even the first Dark Lords of the Sith. Within the deepest vault of this temple, sealed behind walls of pure cortosis and protected by Force barriers that had hummed with dark energy for over 4,000 years, lay a single holocron. But this was no ordinary repository of Sith knowledge. The pyramid was carved from a crystal so black that it seemed to absorb light itself, and when activated, it spoke not with the voice of any known Sith Lord, but with something far older, far more primordial. The holocron contained what the ancient texts referred to as the Prophecies of Eternal Shadow, a collection of visions and rituals that supposedly revealed the ultimate destiny of the dark side of the Force. These weren't mere predictions of future events. According to the fragments that survived the Great Purges, these prophecies were instructions, a cosmic blueprint left by beings who claimed to have walked between the stars before the first sentient species ever gazed up at the night sky. But here's where the mystery deepens, and where our story truly begins. 3 months ago, on a routine archaeological survey of dead worlds, a team of researchers stumbled upon something impossible. Deep in the ruins of an abandoned Jedi temple on Dantooine, hidden beneath layers of rubble and forgotten time, they discovered a second holocron. This one was carved from the purest white crystal, radiating with light side energy. Yet when they managed to activate it, it began reciting the exact same prophecies, word for word, as the dark holocron from Car Delba's Shadow. 2 holocrons, one of absolute darkness, one of purest light, both containing identical prophecies that seemed to transcend the very nature of the Force itself. The implications were staggering. Had the ancient Sith and Jedi once shared some terrible knowledge that both sides later tried to bury? Or was something even more profound at work, something that suggested the eternal conflict between light and dark was itself merely a facade hiding a deeper truth? The research team brought both holocrons to a secure facility on Coruscant, where the galaxy's most respected Force scholars began the delicate work of translation and interpretation. But within days of beginning their research, strange things began happening. Researchers reported shared dreams of vast cosmic rituals. Others claimed to hear whispers in ancient Sith and Old Republic dialects speaking of a coming convergence. 3 scholars disappeared entirely, leaving behind only personal belongings and research notes filled with symbols that matched neither Sith nor Jedi traditions. The project was classified immediately, the surviving researchers sworn to secrecy, and both holocrons were sealed away in the deepest vaults of the Jedi Temple. But the damage was done. The prophecies had been partially translated, and what they revealed shook the very foundations of everything the galaxy thought it knew about the Force. According to these ancient visions, every major event in galactic history, from the rise and fall of the Sith Empire to the founding of the Jedi Order, from the Clone Wars to the reign of the Emperor, had been orchestrated according to a pattern laid down in the prophecies. Light and dark, Jedi and Sith, Republic and Empire, all of it was allegedly following a script written by minds so ancient that they had witnessed the birth of the galaxy itself. But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. The prophecies spoke of a final ritual, a cosmic ceremony that would require the willing participation of both the light and dark sides of the Force. According to the texts, this ritual had been attempted twice before in galactic history, and both times it had failed because the participants couldn't overcome their fundamental opposition to each other. The prophecies warned that time was running out for a third attempt, and if this final ritual was not completed soon, something they called the Great Silence would descend upon the galaxy, ending not just life, but the very concept of existence itself. The last translated fragment, found scrawled in the margins of a researcher's notebook before his disappearance, contained a single haunting line that would change everything. It read, "The child of two bloodlines, born when the twin suns weep crimson tears, shall either complete the circle or shatter it forever. The balance depends not on the strength of the light or the power of the dark, but on the courage to embrace what lies beyond both." As you settle in for tonight's journey, prepare yourself to walk in the footsteps of those who sought to uncover these cosmic mysteries. We'll explore ancient Sith temples where the very stones remember the words of Dark Lords who ruled when the galaxy was young. We'll decipher ritual texts that promise power beyond imagination but demand prices that even the most ambitious Sith might hesitate to pay. Tonight we become archaeologists of the impossible, chroniclers of secrets that were meant to stay buried, and witnesses to a mystery that spans the entire history of the galaxy far, far away. The prophecies are calling. The ancient rituals await, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the echo of that primordial voice still whispers its cosmic truths to those brave enough to listen. Our story begins now. In the shadow of ancient mysteries, where the line between legend and reality grows thin, and where the very fate of the Force itself hangs in the balance. You are Dr. Kira Voss, a Force-sensitive archaeologist who has spent the last 15 years of your life studying the deepest mysteries of ancient civilizations across the galaxy. Your reputation for uncovering lost knowledge has earned you both respect and suspicion from the academic community, particularly because of your unusual ability to sense the emotional imprints left behind by long-dead Force users. It's a gift that has led you to discoveries others would never find, but it's also shown you horrors that most minds weren't meant to comprehend. Standing now on the observation deck of your research vessel, the Seeker's Truth, you gaze down at the planet that has haunted your dreams for months. Carshian appears as a crimson jewel against the star-scattered darkness of space, its surface wreathed in perpetual storms that crackle with unnatural lightning. The planet's twin suns cast an eerie red glow across its atmosphere, creating the illusion that the world itself is bleeding light into the void. This is your destination, the world where the most dangerous archaeological discovery in galactic history awaits your investigation. 3 weeks ago, you received a transmission that changed everything. The message came from Dr. Elena Thorne, a brilliant xeno-archaeologist who had been leading a survey expedition in this forgotten sector of the Outer Rim. Her voice, normally steady and professional, carried an undertone of barely controlled excitement and something else that made your skin crawl with anticipation. The expedition had discovered what appeared to be a massive temple complex buried beneath Carshian's northern polar region. Initial scans suggested the structure was not only intact but also protected by some form of energy field that had preserved it in perfect condition for thousands of years. But it was the symbols carved into the temple's exterior walls that had prompted Elena to send for you specifically. The hieroglyphs matched descriptions from the most restricted texts in the Coruscant archives, symbols associated with prophecies so dangerous that most scholars refuse to study them. Your assistant dried cipher approaches with mechanical precision, its optical sensors glowing a soft blue in the dim light of the observation deck. Unlike most protocol drides, Cipher was specifically designed for archaeological work, equipped with advanced translation algorithms and the ability to interface directly with ancient computer systems. More importantly, Cipher's neural matrix had been shielded against Force influences, making it invaluable when dealing with artifacts that might affect organic minds. Dr. Voss, Cipher announces in its distinctly masculine voice, "We are receiving a transmission from the surface expedition. Dr. Thorne requests immediate consultation regarding their latest findings." You activate the communication array, and Elena's image flickers to life in the holographic display. Her usually immaculate appearance is disheveled, her dark hair escaping from its professional bun, and there's an intensity in her green eyes that you've never seen before. Behind her, you can make out the entrance to what appears to be a vast underground chamber, its walls covered in intricate carvings that seem to shift and move in the uncertain light. "Kira, thank the Force you're here," Elena begins, her words tumbling out in an urgent rush. "We've made a breakthrough that's going to rewrite everything we thought we knew about ancient Force traditions. The temple isn't just Sith, and it isn't just Jedi either. The architecture, the symbols, the entire design philosophy represents something that predates both orders by millennia." She gestures toward the chamber behind her, and you notice that her hands are trembling slightly. "We've found what appears to be a central sanctum containing multiple holocrons. But these aren't like anything in the archives. They're arranged in a specific pattern around a crystalline structure that our equipment can't fully analyze. When we tried to scan it, the reading suggested it exists in some kind of temporal flux, as if it's simultaneously ancient and newly created." Your own excitement begins to build as Elena continues her briefing. This is exactly the kind of discovery that has driven your entire career. The sort of find that promises to unlock secrets that have been hidden since the dawn of galactic civilization. But there's something in Elena's expression that gives you pause. A shadow of concern that suggests not everything about this discovery is cause for celebration. "There's something else, Kira," she says, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. "The local survey team we hired included a Twilk named Jackson Cree, someone with minor Force sensitivity, who's been invaluable for detecting hidden chambers and concealed passages. Yesterday, when he got within 50 meters of the central sanctum, he collapsed. When he regained consciousness, he was speaking in what our linguistics expert believes is an ancient dialect of Sith, but the grammar structures don't match any known linguistic patterns." Elena pauses, running a hand through her disheveled hair. Jackson claims he doesn't remember speaking in the ancient language, but he keeps insisting that something in the sanctum is calling to him. He described it as hearing voices that speak without words, sharing knowledge that feels both completely foreign and intimately familiar. "I've had to post guards to keep him from wandering back toward the temple during the night." The implications of Elena's report send a chill down your spine. Force-sensitive individuals experiencing involuntary linguistic possession near ancient artifacts usually indicates the presence of extremely powerful psychic imprints, the kind left behind by beings who possess knowledge that transcended normal understanding of the Force. These sites are often the most valuable for research, but they're also the most dangerous. You lean forward, studying Elena's image more carefully. "What about the rest of your team?" Has anyone else experienced unusual effects? Elena nods grimly. 3 of my researchers have reported shared dreams featuring ritual ceremonies they've never seen before. The dreams are apparently so vivid and detailed that they've been able to sketch out complex diagrams of what they witnessed. When we compared their drawings, the imagery was nearly identical, right down to the placement of ceremonial objects and the specific gestures being performed by robed figures. She activates a secondary display, showing you several sketches that make your breath catch in your throat. The drawings depict elaborate ceremonies taking place within chambers that match the architecture of the temple below. Figures in both light and dark robes are shown working together in rituals that seem to blend Jedi and Sith traditions in ways that should be impossible. At the center of each ceremony stands a crystalline structure identical to what Elena described finding in the sanctum. Kira, I need your expertise down here, Elena continues. Your ability to read emotional imprints might be the key to understanding what happened in this place, and why it's still affecting people after all these centuries. But I have to warn you, there's something about this site that feels different from anything I've encountered before. It's not malevolent exactly, but it's definitely not passive either. Whatever knowledge is stored in that sanctum, it wants to be found. As Elena's transmission ends, you find yourself staring down at Carshian with new understanding. This isn't just another archaeological site waiting to reveal its secrets to patient investigation. This is something that has been actively calling to Force-sensitive individuals across the galaxy, drawing them to uncover truths that have been hidden for reasons that may have been very wise indeed. Cypher moves to stand beside you at the viewport, its mechanical gaze following yours to the storm-racked planet below. Dr. Voss, shall I prepare the shuttle for immediate departure to the surface? You take a deep breath, feeling the familiar mixture of anticipation and apprehension that always accompanies truly significant discoveries. Whatever awaits you in that ancient temple, you know it will change not only your understanding of galactic history, but possibly the very nature of the Force itself. The shuttle's descent through Carshian's turbulent atmosphere proves more challenging than expected. Crimson lightning arcs across the viewport as you navigate between towering storm cells that seem to pulse with an energy that goes beyond mere meteorological phenomena. Cypher maintains a steady stream of navigational updates while monitoring the shuttle's systems, but you can sense something the droid's instruments cannot detect. The storms aren't random weather patterns. They're responding to your presence, parting just enough to allow safe passage while maintaining an almost ceremonial intensity around your vessel. As you break through the lowest cloud layer, the landscape of Carshian reveals itself in all its haunting majesty. The northern polar region stretches out below you like a vast canvas painted in shades of deep red and gold, with crystalline formations jutting from the surface like ancient monuments to forgotten gods. The twin suns hang low on the horizon, their combined light casting everything in that eerie crimson glow that seems to make the very air shimmer with potential energy. The expedition's base camp comes into view as a cluster of prefabricated structures arranged in a defensive perimeter around what appears to be a massive excavation site. Even from this altitude, you can make out the scope of Elena's discovery. The temple complex isn't merely large, it's absolutely colossal. What you initially took for natural rock formations are actually the upper levels of a structure that extends deep into the planet's crust, with architectural elements that blend seamlessly with the surrounding terrain as if the entire northern continent had been shaped by intelligent design. Your shuttle touches down on a landing pad that Elena's team has cleared near the excavation perimeter. As you disembark, the planet's atmosphere hits you like a physical force. The air is thin but breathable, tinged with the metallic taste of ozone and something else, something that makes your Force sensitivity tingle with recognition. It's the same sensation you felt at other sites of ancient power, but magnified beyond anything in your previous experience. Elena emerges from the main research facility as you approach, and you can immediately see that the 3 weeks since her transmission have taken their toll. Her usually sharp professional demeanor has been replaced by something more intense, more driven. There's a restless energy about her movements that suggests she's been sleeping poorly, if at all. But there's also an excitement in her eyes that borders on evangelical fervor. "Kira, you have to see what we've uncovered," she says without preamble, leading you toward the excavation site. At a pace that's almost frantic, everything we thought we knew about the relationship between the Jedi and Sith traditions, everything we believed about the fundamental nature of the Force itself, it's all been turned upside down by what's hidden in this temple. As you walk through the camp, you notice other members of Elena's team watching your arrival with expressions that range from hopeful to apprehensive. These are experienced researchers, people who've spent their careers dealing with archaeological mysteries. Yet there's something in their faces that suggests they've encountered something beyond their ability to process rationally. The excavation site itself takes your breath away. The temple entrance has been fully exposed, revealing a facade that rises nearly 200 meters above the surface. The architecture defies easy classification, combining elements that you recognize from both ancient Jedi and Sith traditions, but arranged in patterns that suggest a third influence, something that predates both orders and may have inspired their foundational philosophies. The symbols carved into the stone walls seem to shift and flow as you watch them, not through any physical movement, but through some optical illusion that plays tricks with your perception. Cipher immediately begins recording and analyzing the hieroglyphic patterns, its advanced translation algorithms working to decode meanings that have been hidden for millennia. The inscription work alone represents years of study, Elena explains as she guides you toward the main entrance. But what's really remarkable is the preservation. Look at the detail in these carvings. After 4,000 years, they're still as sharp and clear as the day they were completed. Whatever energy field is protecting this site, it's maintained perfect environmental conditions throughout the entire complex. As you approach the threshold of the temple, you feel a subtle shift in the force around you. It's not the malevolent presence you might expect from a Sith site, nor is it the serene harmony typically associated with Jedi temples. Instead, it feels like something vast and patient, ancient beyond measure, but very much alive and aware. The sensation is simultaneously comforting and deeply unsettling. Elena leads you through corridors that seem to stretch infinitely into the heart of the planet. The walls are lined with more of the shifting symbols, interspersed with alcoves containing artifacts that your trained eye immediately recognizes as significant. There are ceremonial vessels carved from unknown crystals, meditation orbs that still pulse with faint energy signatures, and weapons that blend lightsaber technology with design elements you've never seen before. We've cataloged over 300 individual artifacts so far, Elena explains, her voice echoing in the vast corridors, but we haven't dared to remove any of them from their positions. Every piece seems to be part of a larger whole, as if the entire temple is one massive interconnected mechanism designed for purposes we're only beginning to understand. The deeper you venture into the complex, the more pronounced the Force presence becomes. It's not intrusive or overwhelming, but it's definitely interactive, responding to your thoughts and emotions with subtle shifts in the ambient energy. You begin to understand why Elena's team has been experiencing shared dreams and involuntary knowledge downloads. This isn't just a repository of ancient information. It's an active teaching environment, one that adapts its lessons to the needs and capabilities of each visitor. After nearly an hour of walking through interconnected chambers and corridors, Elena finally stops before a massive doorway sealed with what appears to be pure energy, rather than any physical barrier. The opening is large enough to accommodate several people walking abreast, but the energy field creates a translucent barrier that distorts the view of whatever lies beyond. This is as far as we've been able to penetrate, Elena says, her voice dropping to a reverent whisper. Our instruments detect the central sanctum on the other side of this barrier, but we haven't been able to find a way through. The energy field doesn't respond to any conventional methods, and attempts to force entry have resulted in immediate system shutdowns for all our equipment. You approach the barrier carefully, extending your force senses toward the energy field. The moment your consciousness makes contact with it, images begin flooding your mind. You see ceremonial gatherings involving beings of species you don't recognize. Rituals that blend light and dark side techniques in ways that create something entirely new. You witness the construction of the temple itself. Watch as ancient architects channel raw force energy into the very stones to create a structure that exists as much in the metaphysical realm as in physical reality. But most significantly, you sense purpose behind the barrier. This isn't a passive security system designed to keep intruders out. It's an active selection mechanism. One that's been waiting patiently for millennia for someone with the right combination of knowledge, ability, and intent to arrive. The barrier isn't keeping you out. It's evaluating whether you're ready for what lies within. As understanding dawns, you realize that your arrival on Kar Shien wasn't coincidence or even professional obligation. You were called here by the temple itself, drawn across the galaxy to fulfill a role in events that were set in motion long before your birth. The real question isn't whether you can gain access to the sanctum beyond the barrier. The question is whether you're prepared to accept the responsibility that comes with the knowledge waiting inside. The breakthrough comes at dawn on your second day at the excavation site. As Kar Shien's twin suns rise above the horizon, casting their crimson light across the temple complex, you feel a subtle shift in the force barrier that has been blocking access to the central sanctum. It's as if the ancient security system has completed some form of evaluation process, and you've been found worthy of passage. Standing before the energy barrier with Elena and Cypher flanking you, you extend your hand toward the translucent field. The moment your fingers make contact, the energy begins to dissipate, like morning mist, revealing the chamber beyond in all its breathtaking glory. Elena gasps audibly beside you, while Cypher immediately begins recording everything with its advanced sensor arrays. The central sanctum stretches out before you, like a cathedral dedicated to the mysteries of the Force itself. The chamber is circular, with a domed ceiling that soars nearly 50 meters above the floor. The walls are covered in the same shifting hieroglyphs you've seen throughout the temple, but here they move with more purpose, creating patterns that seem to tell a story in symbols that bypass conscious understanding and speak directly to your Force sensitivity. At the center of the chamber stands the crystalline structure Elena described in her transmission, but seeing it in person reveals details that no holographic image could capture. The formation rises from the floor like a natural crystal growth, but its faceted surfaces have been carved with precision that surpasses even the finest Coruscant artisans. The crystal itself appears to be made of some unknown material that shifts between transparency and opacity, sometimes revealing glimpses of complex internal structures that seem to exist in dimensions beyond normal perception. Arranged around the central crystal in a perfect circle are 7 holocrons, each one representing a different aspect of Force tradition. 3 are carved from the familiar dark stone associated with Sith knowledge, while 3 others gleam with the white crystal typically used by Jedi archivists. But the 7th holocron, positioned directly opposite the chamber entrance, appears to be made from the same shifting material as the central crystal, neither light nor dark, but something that exists in the space between opposites. As you approach the holocron circle, you notice that each device is positioned on a raised platform connected to the others by lines of some metallic substance that's been inlaid into the chamber floor. The pattern created by these connections forms a complex geometric design that your archaeological training recognizes as a mandala, a symbolic representation of cosmic order found in many ancient cultures throughout the galaxy. Cypher moves to examine the nearest Sith holocron, its sensors detecting energy signatures that should be impossible after millennia of storage. Dr. Voss, these devices are not only intact, they appear to be actively maintaining themselves through some form of energy draw from the central crystal. The power readings suggest they contain far more information than standard holocron storage capacity should allow. Elena kneels beside one of the Jedi holocrons, her hands hovering just above its surface without quite touching. Kira, I've been studying ancient artifacts for 15 years, but I've never seen preservation this perfect. It's as if these holocrons were placed here yesterday instead of thousands of years ago. You walk slowly around the circle, feeling the force energy radiating from each holocron in turn. Each device seems to contain not just information but actual presence, as if fragments of their creator's consciousness have been preserved within the crystalline matrices. But what strikes you most powerfully is the harmony between them. Despite representing traditions that have been locked in conflict for millennia, these holocrons exist in perfect balance with each other, their energies complementing rather than opposing. When you reach the seventh holocron, the one carved from the shifting crystal material, you feel a jolt of recognition that has nothing to do with your archaeological training. This device is calling to you specifically, responding to something in your force signature that resonates with its purpose. As you extend your hand toward it, the holocron activates without any conscious command from you. The image that materializes above the device is unlike any holocron projection you've ever encountered. Instead of a single figure, you see three beings standing together, their forms slightly translucent and constantly shifting between different species and appearances. One figure radiates the serene confidence of a Jedi Master, another carries the passionate intensity of a Sith Lord, while the third seems to embody something that transcends both traditions entirely. Seeker of truth, the three figures speak in unison, their voices creating harmonies that seem to resonate through your bones. You have been called across the void, to witness what was, to understand what is, and to choose what will be. The prophecies that brought you here span the breadth of galactic history, but their fulfillment depends upon decisions that only you can make. The central figure, the one that exists beyond light and dark, steps forward from the group. I am known by many names across many worlds, but you may call me the Chronicler. For 10,000 years, I have been the keeper of the eternal prophecies, the guardian of knowledge that bridges the artificial divide between opposing forces. What you see before you is not merely a record of the past, but a living testament to possibilities that still await fulfillment. Elena and Cypher stand transfixed as the chronicler continues speaking. But you sense that while they can see and hear the projection, the full depth of communication is meant for you alone. There are layers of meaning, being transmitted directly to your consciousness, concepts that couldn't be expressed in mere words, even if there were time for lengthy explanations. The prophecies you seek to understand are not predictions in the conventional sense, the chronicler explains. They are patterns, cosmic rhythms that guide the flow of events across time and space. Every great conflict, every moment of balance or imbalance in the Force, follows these patterns because they represent the fundamental nature of existence itself. As the chronicler speaks, the walls of the chamber begin displaying images that illustrate their words. You see the rise and fall of ancient civilizations, the founding of both Jedi and Sith orders, wars that shaped the course of galactic history, and moments of peace that allowed knowledge and wisdom to flourish. But underneath all these events, you begin to perceive the pattern the chronicler described. A vast cosmic rhythm that encompasses light and dark, creation and destruction, order and chaos. But there is a missing element, the chronicler continues, and their expression grows grave. The prophecies speak of 3 great attempts to achieve perfect balance, 3 moments in galactic history, when the cosmic pattern could be completed and harmony established between all aspects of the Force. 2 of these attempts have already failed, not through malice or ignorance, but because the participants could not overcome their fundamental belief that light and dark must remain separate. The images on the walls shift to show 2 specific historical events, moments of such cosmic significance that you feel their echoes reverberating through the Force even now. You witness ancient rituals performed by beings of incredible power, ceremonies that came tantalizingly close to achieving their intended purpose before collapsing, due to ideological conflicts between their participants. The 3rd and final attempt approaches, the chronicler says, their voice carrying a weight that seems to encompass the destiny of entire star systems. The prophecies have guided events to bring together all the necessary elements, but success is not guaranteed. The choice between completion and eternal failure rests with those who can see beyond the limitations that have doomed previous attempts. As the chronicler's words fade into silence, you realize that something fundamental has changed in your understanding of your role here. You came to Karshian as an archaeologist, seeking to uncover ancient secrets, but now you understand that you've actually been recruited as a participant in events that will determine the future of the Force itself. The real question is no longer what the prophecies contain, but whether you're prepared to help fulfill them. The revelation from the 7th holocron leaves you reeling as you try to process the magnitude of what you've learned. Standing in the sacred chamber with Elena and Cypher, you find yourself grappling with concepts that challenge everything you thought you understood about the nature of the Force and your own role in galactic history. The idea that you've been specifically chosen to participate in some cosmic ritual seems almost too incredible to accept. Yet the evidence surrounding you makes denial impossible. Elena breaks the contemplative silence that has settled over your small group. Kira, I think we need to approach this methodically. The chronicler mentioned prophecies that span galactic history, but we need to understand the specific details before we can make any decisions about participation. Her scientific training is asserting itself, providing an anchor of rational analysis in the face of overwhelming mystical implications. You nod, grateful for Elena's practical perspective. You're right. Let's activate the other holocrons and see what additional information they contain. If we're going to understand these prophecies fully, we need to examine evidence from multiple sources. Cypher approaches the nearest Sith holocron, its sensors detecting the optimal activation sequence through careful analysis of the device's energy patterns. As the holocron springs to life, the projection that appears above it is immediately recognizable as Darth Revan, one of the most enigmatic figures in Sith history. But this version of Revan appears different from the historical records, more serene and less consumed by the passionate intensity typically associated with Sith lords. Knowledge Seeker. Revan's image speaks with measured authority. You stand at the threshold of understanding that eluded me during my lifetime. I who walked both paths, who embraced both light and dark in pursuit of balance, could never achieve what the prophecies demanded, because I remained trapped by the belief that these forces were fundamentally separate. The projection gestures toward the central crystal, which begins pulsing with rhythmic light that seems to synchronize with your heartbeat. The first prophecy speaks of unity achieved through understanding, not through dominance of one aspect over another. During my time, I believed that mastering both sides of the Force would grant me the wisdom needed to bring peace to the galaxy. I was wrong. True balance cannot be achieved through individual mastery, but only through collective transcendence. As Revan's words sink in, you activate one of the Jedi holocrons, revealing the projection of a figure you don't immediately recognize. The being appears to be an ancient Jedi master, but their species is unfamiliar, with features that suggest they lived in an era when the galaxy was populated by civilizations that have since vanished from known history. "I am Master Kethvar of the Jedi Order," the figure announces, confirming your suspicion about their antiquity. Long before the Jedi and Sith became separate orders locked in eternal conflict, there existed those who understood that the Force encompasses all aspects of existence without preference or prejudice. The second prophecy emerged from our understanding, but we too failed in its implementation. Master Kethvar's projection moves to stand beside Revan's image, and you notice that despite representing supposedly opposing philosophies, the two figures seem to complement each other perfectly. Our failure came from a different source than Darth Revan's, where he sought to master both aspects of the Force individually. We attempted to ignore the natural tension between light and dark. We believed that perfect balance meant the elimination of conflict, but the prophecies revealed that tension itself is necessary for growth and change. Elena activates a second Sith holocron, this one projecting the image of an ancient Dark Lord whose name has been lost to history. The figure radiates power and authority, but there's also a profound sadness in their bearing that suggests deep regret about missed opportunities. "I am the last of the first," the projection declares cryptically. "My name was struck from all records when I dared to suggest that the Sith code was incomplete, that true power could only be achieved through synthesis rather than domination." The third prophecy came to me in visions that showed the ultimate destiny of all Force users, but my fellow Sith Lords branded me a heretic and destroyed every trace of my teachings. The last of the first moves to join Revan and Master Kethvar, creating a triangle of projections around the central crystal. Each of us discovered pieces of the greater truth, but none of us possessed the complete understanding necessary for success. The prophecies reveal that the final attempt will require not just individual enlightenment, but the cooperation of multiple beings who can transcend the limitations that doomed our efforts. As you process the information provided by these three holocron guardians, a pattern begins to emerge that seems almost too convenient to be coincidental. Each figure represents a different approach to achieving balance in the Force, and each admits to specific failures that prevented success. But their combined wisdom suggests that the obstacles they faced individually might be overcome through collaborative effort. Cypher interrupts your contemplation with an analysis that brings sharp focus to your growing understanding. "Dr. Voss, I have been monitoring the energy interactions between the activated holocrons and the central crystal. The power flows are creating a resonance pattern that matches theoretical calculations for what ancient texts describe as a Force nexus of infinite potential. If my analysis is correct, this chamber has been designed as a focal point for energies that span multiple dimensions of reality." Elena's scientific curiosity overrides her caution as she approaches the central crystal more closely. "Kara, look at this. The internal structure of the crystal is changing in response to the holocron activations. It's as if each new source of information is adding complexity to some kind of cosmic blueprint contained within the crystal matrix." You join Elena beside the central crystal, and through your Force sensitivity, you can indeed perceive layers of information being integrated into increasingly sophisticated patterns. The crystal isn't just storing the knowledge from the holocrons, it's using that information to construct something larger, a comprehensive understanding that encompasses all the failed attempts at achieving the prophetic goals. But even as this realization brings excitement, you feel a nagging sense that something crucial is missing from your understanding. The three activated holocrons have provided historical context and philosophical framework, but they haven't revealed the specific requirements for success in the final attempt. The prophecies remain tantalizingly incomplete. offering glimpses of cosmic purpose without practical guidance for achieving it. As if responding to your unspoken concerns, the seventh holocron activates again, projecting the chronicler's triform image above the shifting crystal surface. Seeker of truth, you have begun to perceive the pattern that connects all aspects of this mystery. The wisdom of those who came before provides the foundation. But the completion of the prophecies requires something that none of them possessed. The chronicler's expression becomes both encouraging and challenging. What was missing from all previous attempts was not knowledge or power or even wisdom, but the willingness to accept that the ultimate truth transcends all categories and limitations. The final prophecy cannot be fulfilled through understanding alone, but only through a leap of faith that abandons the safety of known boundaries. As the chronicler's words echo through the chamber, you realize that you've reached the end of the preliminary revelations. The prophecies have been outlined, the historical failures explained, and the theoretical framework established. But the most crucial questions remain unanswered, waiting for discoveries that will require you to venture beyond the safety of academic research into realms where the very nature of reality becomes negotiable. The first phase of your investigation is complete, but the real journey is only beginning. The deeper chambers of the temple complex reveal themselves gradually as you and your team venture beyond the central sanctum. Each passage you explore seems to respond to your presence, with ancient lighting systems activating automatically and sealed doorways opening at your approach. It becomes increasingly clear that the entire structure is designed as an interactive environment, one that guides visitors through a carefully orchestrated journey of discovery and understanding. 3 levels below the sanctum, you discover what Elena's archaeological training identifies as a meditation complex. The chambers here are smaller than the grand halls above, but their intimate scale creates an atmosphere of profound contemplation. The walls are lined with alcoves containing crystalline formations that pulse with gentle light, each one attuned to different aspects of force energy. When you extend your senses toward these crystals, you feel them responding to your emotional state, amplifying feelings of peace and clarity, while dampening the anxiety and urgency that have driven your investigation thus far. Cypher's analysis reveals that the meditation crystals are drawing energy from the same source that powers the central sanctum, but they're using that power in a fundamentally different way. Rather than storing information or projecting images, these crystals seem designed to facilitate direct experience, allowing users to access states of consciousness that might otherwise require years of disciplined practice to achieve. Elena settles into one of the meditation alcoves, her scientific curiosity overcoming any concerns about the safety of interacting with unknown technology. Kira, you have to try this. The crystal is creating some kind of resonance field that makes it incredibly easy to quiet mental chatter and focus on deeper levels of awareness. It's like having a master meditation teacher guiding you through techniques that would normally take decades to master. You choose an alcove positioned opposite Elena's, allowing the crystal's energy to wash over you as you settle into a meditative posture. The effect is immediate and profound. Your consciousness seems to expand beyond the normal boundaries of individual awareness, connecting you to currents of force energy that flow through the temple, the planet, and beyond into the cosmic web that binds all living things together. In this expanded state, you begin to perceive the temple complex not as a static structure, but as a living entity with its own form of consciousness. The builders didn't simply construct a repository for ancient knowledge. They created something far more sophisticated, a teaching environment that adapts its lessons to the needs and capabilities of each visitor. The prophecies aren't just recorded information waiting to be discovered. They're active principles that guide the temple's interactions with those who seek understanding. As your meditation deepens, images begin flowing through your consciousness with the clarity of direct experience, rather than mere visualization. You witness the construction of the temple complex, observing as ancient architects channel raw force energy into the very stones to create a structure that exists simultaneously in physical and metaphysical dimensions. The builders themselves are beings of species you don't recognize, but their mastery of force techniques surpasses anything in known galactic history. The most remarkable aspect of these visions is the cooperation you observe between individuals who clearly represent different philosophical approaches to the Force. Light side practitioners work alongside dark side adepts, while others who seem to transcend both categories coordinate the overall project. There's no sense of conflict or even tension between these different groups, only a shared commitment to creating something that will serve purposes far greater than any individual agenda. Through the meditation crystal's influence, you begin to understand the true scope of the prophecies that have brought you to this place. They encompass not just galactic history, but cosmic cycles that span millions of years, patterns of creation and dissolution that affect entire clusters of galaxies. The rise and fall of civilizations, the evolution of consciousness, even the birth and death of stars, all follow rhythms that the prophecies describe in symbolic language that speaks directly to force-sensitive awareness. But the most profound revelation comes when you perceive your own role in these cosmic patterns. You weren't called to Karshian by coincidence, or even by the temple's mysterious influence on force-sensitive individuals throughout the galaxy. Your entire life, from your earliest childhood experiences to your development as an archaeologist specializing in ancient mysteries, has been guided by forces operating on scales that dwarf ordinary understanding of cause and effect. Elena's voice draws you back to normal awareness as she shares her own revelations from the meditation session. Kira, I've been experiencing visions of other temple complexes scattered throughout the galaxy. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all connected through some kind of network that spans space and time. This isn't just an isolated archaeological site. It's part of a vast infrastructure designed to facilitate the evolution of consciousness on a galactic scale. Cypher confirms Elena's intuition with sensor readings that detect energy signatures extending far beyond the temple's physical boundaries. Dr. Voss, I am detecting resonance patterns that suggest this location is indeed connected to similar facilities throughout known space. The energy network appears to be dormant in most locations, but several sites are showing signs of recent activation. As you process this information, the implications become staggering. The ancient builders didn't create a single temple on a remote world. They established a galaxy-spanning network of consciousness development facilities. The prophecies that brought you here aren't isolated predictions. They're part of a coordinated effort to guide the evolution of force-sensitive beings towards some ultimate goal that transcends anything previously imagined. The meditation crystals continue to provide insights as you extend your session, revealing additional layers of the vast conspiracy of enlightenment that has been operating behind the scenes of galactic history. Every major spiritual tradition, every breakthrough in force understanding, every moment when individuals transcended the limitations of their time and culture has been influenced by this network of ancient wisdom. But you also begin to perceive the challenges that prevented previous attempts at fulfilling the prophecies. The network itself is incomplete, with crucial nodes damaged or destroyed over the millennia by conflicts, natural disasters, and the simple passage of time. Each failed attempt to achieve the prophetic goals has been hampered by the degradation of the support systems that the ancient builders created to facilitate success. Your meditation reveals that the current attempt, the final opportunity described by the chronicler, is possible only because recent events have restored enough of the network's functionality to attempt the ultimate ritual. But success is far from guaranteed, and failure would result not just in another postponement, but in the complete collapse of the ancient infrastructure. As you emerge from the deep meditative state, you find Elena and Cypher waiting with expressions of concern and anticipation. Hours have passed without your awareness, and both your companions have been receiving their own insights through connection to the temple's consciousness network. Elena speaks first, her voice carrying a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Kira, we've discovered something that changes everything. The prophecies aren't just about achieving balance in the Force. They're about preparing for something that's approaching from outside our galaxy entirely. The ultimate ritual isn't just a spiritual exercise. It's a defense mechanism designed to protect all life in the galaxy from a threat that the ancient builders somehow perceived in advance. Cypher adds its own analysis, providing crucial details that complete the picture. Elena has begun to sketch. Voss, the energy readings I have been monitoring suggest that the approaching phenomenon operates on principles that are fundamentally incompatible with conscious existence as we understand it. The ritual described in the prophecies appears to be designed to create a protective field that spans the entire galaxy, but it requires the cooperation of Force users representing every major tradition and philosophy. As this new understanding settles over you, the true weight of your situation becomes clear. You haven't been called to participate in some abstract spiritual achievement, but to help defend the galaxy against an existential threat that could eliminate all life and consciousness from known space. The final prophecy isn't about transcendence. It's about survival on a scale that encompasses every living being in the galaxy. The revelation about the approaching galactic threat transforms your understanding of the temple complex and sends you deeper into its mysteries. Following energy signatures that Cypher detects emanating from the meditation chambers, you discover a spiral staircase carved directly into the living rock of Harshian itself. The steps descend for what feels like kilometers, taking you far below the surface into chambers that predate even the ancient temple above. These depths reveal the true age of the site. The architecture here is older, more primal, carved not by conventional tools but by pure Force manipulation that shaped stone as if it were clay. The walls bear no symbols or decorations, only smooth curves that seem to follow natural patterns found in seashells, galaxies, and the flow of water over stone. Yet despite their apparent simplicity, these passages radiate with power that makes the chambers above seem like mere preparation for what lies in the planetary depths. Elena's archaeological expertise proves invaluable as you navigate the ancient passages. Kira, the construction techniques down here don't match anything in the known historical record. The builders were working with levels of Force mastery that suggest they understood principles we've completely lost. These chambers aren't just old, they're from a completely different era of galactic development. The deepest chamber you discover takes your breath away with its scope and grandeur. The space is vast enough to hold a small city, with a domed ceiling that stretches hundreds of meters overhead. But what dominates the chamber is a massive crystalline formation that rises from the floor like a frozen waterfall of pure light. Unlike the shifting crystal in the sanctum above, this formation appears perfectly stable, radiating steady energy that feels as fundamental as gravity or electromagnetism. Cypher's sensors go into overdrive as the droid attempts to analyze the massive crystal structure. Dr. Voss, this formation is unlike anything in my databases. The energy readings suggest it's not actually composed of any known material, but rather represents some form of crystallized Force energy that has achieved permanent physical manifestation. As you approach the Great Crystal, you feel your Force sensitivity, responding to its presence in ways that seem to bypass conscious control. Memories that aren't your own begin surfacing in your mind. Visions of events that occurred millions of years ago when the galaxy was young and the barriers between physical and metaphysical reality were far more permeable than they are now. You witness the arrival of the ancient builders, beings who came from beyond the galactic rim carrying knowledge of threats that span multiple universes. They weren't native to this galaxy, but refugees from cosmic disasters that had already consumed their original homes. The great crystal before you represents their attempt to create an anchor point, a stabilizing influence that could protect this galaxy from the same forces that destroyed their previous civilizations. Elena joins you beside the massive formation, her own force sensitivity, allowing her to perceive echoes of the visions you're experiencing. They were trying to build something permanent, she whispers, her voice filled with awe, not just for themselves, but for civilizations that wouldn't exist for millions of years. The entire temple complex, the network spanning the galaxy, all of it was designed to create a protective barrier that could function across geological timescales. The crystal responds to your combined presence by projecting images directly into the chamber around you. The walls become transparent, revealing views of ancient galactic civilization at its height. You see worlds covered with cities that stretch from pole to pole, space lanes filled with vessels carrying beings of hundreds of different species, and centers of learning where knowledge flows freely between traditions that would later fragment into the Jedi and Sith orders. But the images also show the approach of the threat that drove the ancient builders to create their defensive network. Moving through the void between galaxies comes something that defies easy description. It's not a fleet of ships or even a single massive entity, but rather a wave of fundamental alteration that changes the basic nature of reality wherever it passes. Worlds touched by this influence don't simply die, they cease to have ever existed, their entire histories erased from the cosmic record. The ancient builders' response to this approaching annihilation was to create what they called the Eternal Aegis, a protective field generated by the coordinated effort of force-sensitive beings across the galaxy. But the field couldn't be created by technology alone, no matter how advanced. It required the willing participation of conscious beings who could serve as living conduits for energies that spanned dimensions beyond normal space and time. As the crystal's projections continue, you see the first attempts to activate the Eternal Aegis during the height of ancient galactic civilization. The ritual required representatives from every major force tradition working together in perfect harmony, channeling their combined will through the network of temple complexes to create a barrier around the entire galaxy. But the attempt failed when ideological differences between the participants created dissonance in the energy patterns needed for success. The failure had catastrophic consequences. The approaching wave of annihilation, temporarily held back by the partial activation of the Aegis, responded by accelerating its advance toward the galaxy. The ancient civilization had perhaps 1,000 years to prepare for the final confrontation. But internal conflicts and the gradual degradation of the temple network made subsequent attempts increasingly unlikely to succeed. Elena's voice breaks through your absorption in the crystal's revelations. Kira, if these visions are accurate, then we're seeing the real reason for the fall of the ancient galactic civilization. It wasn't war or natural disaster. It was the failure to achieve the unity necessary for survival. Cypher adds its own analysis, providing technical details that confirm the implications of what you're witnessing. The energy wave approaches in cycles measured in millions of years. According to my calculations based on the crystal's data projections, the current cycle is approaching its culmination. The threat that destroyed the ancient builders' previous civilizations will reach this galaxy within the next several decades. The weight of this revelation settles over you like a physical force. The prophecies that brought you to Karsheen aren't ancient history. They're urgent warnings about a crisis that will unfold within your lifetime. The approaching threat isn't some distant possibility that future generations might need to address. It's an immediate danger that requires action from the current generation of force-sensitive beings. As if responding to your growing understanding, the Great Crystal projects one final image that brings the entire situation into sharp focus. You see the galaxy as it exists now, with its scattered Jedi, hidden Sith, and countless other Force traditions operating in isolation from each other. The ancient network of temple complexes is mostly dormant, with only a few sites like Har Xian maintaining the power levels necessary for the eternal Aegis. But the image also shows potential pathways of possibility that could still lead to success if the right choices are made. The current generation of Force users represents the last opportunity to achieve the unity that previous attempts failed to accomplish. The knowledge preserved in places like this temple complex provides the guidance needed for success, but only if beings from across the galaxy can overcome millennia of mistrust and ideological conflict. The crystal's final projection shows you something that makes your heart race with both terror and hope. Standing in chambers like this one throughout the galaxy are other Force-sensitive individuals who have been called to ancient sites by the same prophetic influences that brought you to Har Xian. They're archaeologists and scholars, Jedi and Sith, independent Force users and members of traditions you've never encountered. All of them are discovering the same truths you've uncovered. All of them are being prepared for a role in the final attempt to activate the eternal Aegis. The prophecies aren't just calling to you. They're calling to everyone who might contribute to galactic survival. The Great Crystal's revelations leave you standing in stunned silence as the magnitude of the galactic situation becomes clear. But as the projected images fade, you notice something that changes everything about your understanding of your role in these events. Carved into the base of the massive formation, almost hidden by the play of light and shadow, are symbols that match the genetic markers you've carried in your DNA since birth. Elena notices your sudden stillness and follows your gaze to the carved symbols. Her archaeological training immediately recognizes their significance, even though she lacks the Force sensitivity to understand their full implications. Kira. Those markings aren't random decorations. They're personal identifiers, the kind used in ancient cultures to mark bloodline inheritance or sacred responsibilities. Cypher's analysis confirms what you're beginning to suspect with growing certainty. Dr. Voss, the symbols match genetic sequences I have detected in your cellular structure. The probability of coincidental similarity is statistically impossible. These markings were placed here specifically to identify you as a designated participant in the events we have been investigating. As this realization sinks in, memories begin surfacing that you've carried your entire life without understanding their significance. Dreams of ancient temples, an inexplicable attraction to archaeological sites connected with Force traditions, an instinctive understanding of symbols and technologies that should have been completely foreign to your experience. Your entire career path, your specialization in ancient mysteries, even your presence on Har Xian at this crucial moment weren't products of choice or chance, but the fulfillment of a destiny that was encoded into your very genetics millions of years ago. The Great Crystal responds to your recognition of this truth by projecting new images that show the scope of the ancient builders' planning. They didn't just create a network of temple complexes and hope that future generations would discover them in time. They implemented a breeding program that would ensure the right individuals would be born at the right time with the genetic predisposition necessary to understand and implement their defensive protocols. You see bloodlines being carefully guided across millions of years, genetic sequences being preserved through countless generations, and the gradual distribution of these special lineages throughout the galaxy. The ancient builders weren't just preparing technology to defend against the approaching threat, they were preparing the people who would be capable of using that technology effectively. Elena's voice carries a mixture of amazement and concern as she processes the implications of these revelations. Kira, if this is accurate, then you're not just an archaeologist who happened to discover an important site. You're the product of a genetic engineering program that spans geological time periods. Your entire existence has been planned and guided to bring you to this moment. The crystal's projections shift to show you other individuals throughout the galaxy who share similar genetic markers. Some are easily recognizable as powerful Force users, Jedi Masters and Sith Lords, whose abilities have shaped galactic history. But others are ordinary beings living unremarkable lives, their special heritage dormant until the approaching crisis activates capabilities they never knew they possessed. As you watch these images, you begin to understand the true complexity of the ancient builders' plan. They didn't create a single chosen one who would save the galaxy through individual heroism. Instead, they created a distributed network of genetically prepared individuals who would be drawn together when the time came for the final activation of the eternal Aegis. Each person represents a different aspect of the Force, a different perspective on the nature of reality, but all share the genetic foundation necessary for transcending the limitations that doomed previous attempts. Cypher's continuing analysis reveals additional layers of the breeding program's sophistication. Dr. Voss, the genetic modifications extend beyond simple Force sensitivity. The ancient builders appear to have encoded specific knowledge directly into the DNA of their chosen bloodlines. As these individuals awaken to their heritage, they will spontaneously understand technologies and techniques that would normally require decades of study to master. This explains the ease with which you've been interpreting the temple's mysteries, the intuitive understanding you felt when examining ancient artifacts, and the growing sense that you've always known more about these subjects than your formal education could account for. The knowledge isn't being learned. It's being remembered as genetic memories activate in response to the approaching crisis. But the crystal's projections also reveal a troubling aspect of the ancient plan. The genetic modifications that enable understanding of the defensive protocols also create psychological pressure that becomes increasingly difficult to resist as the activation time approaches. The chosen bloodlines aren't just being prepared for their role, they're being compelled toward it whether they consent to participation or not. Elena recognizes the ethical implications immediately. Kira, this puts everything in a different light. You're not choosing to help save the galaxy. You're being programmed to do it. The entire concept of free will becomes questionable when your genetics are driving you toward predetermined actions. The Great Crystal seems to respond to Elena's concerns by projecting images that show alternative possibilities. You see potential futures where the genetically chosen individuals resist their programming and refuse to participate in the final ritual. In these timelines, the approaching wave of annihilation reaches the galaxy unopposed, erasing not just life but the very concept that life ever existed in this region of space. But you also see futures where the chosen ones embrace their role willingly, understanding that their sacrifice of individual autonomy serves a purpose greater than personal freedom. In these timelines, the galaxy survives to develop new forms of civilization that transcend the limitations that made the ancient defensive measures necessary. The crystal's final projection shows you something that brings the entire situation into personal focus. Standing beside you in the depths of this ancient temple are Elena and Cypher, but their appearances have changed. Elena's human features have taken on an otherworldly quality that suggests latent genetic modifications similar to your own, while Cypher's mechanical form seems to be transitioning towards something that blends artificial and organic elements in ways that challenge conventional understanding of consciousness. You realize that your companions weren't drawn to this expedition by chance any more than you were. Elena's archaeological expertise and Cypher's technical capabilities represent essential elements of the ancient plan, different aspects of the knowledge base necessary for implementing the eternal Aegis. The team that has formed around this investigation isn't a random collection of individuals, but a carefully orchestrated convergence of capabilities that the ancient builders designed to function together. As this understanding crystallizes, you feel the genetic programming asserting itself more strongly. The knowledge encoded in your DNA is awakening rapidly now, flooding your consciousness with technical specifications for technologies that haven't existed for millions of years. You understand how to activate dormant temple networks, how to coordinate energy flows across galactic distances, and how to channel force abilities beyond anything in recorded history. But alongside this expanding knowledge comes a growing awareness of the price that will be demanded for success. The final ritual doesn't just require the participation of the genetically chosen, it requires their complete transformation into something that transcends individual existence. The ancient builders didn't create a plan for saving the galaxy while preserving the humanity of its defenders. They created a plan that would turn the defenders themselves into living components of the protective system. The choice you face isn't simply whether to help activate the eternal aegis, but whether to accept the loss of your individual identity in service of galactic survival. The prophecies have brought you to the moment of ultimate decision, where the fate of countless billions depends on your willingness to become something greater and less than human. The transformation has already begun, though you only recognize it now as the genetic programming reaches critical activation levels. Standing before the Great Crystal, you feel your consciousness expanding beyond the normal boundaries of individual awareness, connecting to currents of information that flow through the temple network and beyond into the cosmic web that binds all existence together. The process is both exhilarating and terrifying as you realize that the person you've been your entire life is dissolving into something vastly larger and fundamentally different. Elena experiences her own awakening as dormant genetic sequences activate in response to your transformation. Her archaeological knowledge suddenly encompasses civilizations that existed before the first recorded history, technical specifications for technologies that predate known science, and an intuitive understanding of force principles that rivals the greatest masters of any tradition. But like you, she feels her individual identity being subsumed into a larger pattern of consciousness that spans millions of years. Cypher undergoes the most dramatic change of all. The droid's artificial intelligence matrices begin integrating with organic components that emerge from within its mechanical structure, creating a hybrid consciousness that bridges the gap between synthetic and biological awareness. The ancient builders apparently anticipated that artificial intelligence would develop alongside organic consciousness, and they designed their genetic modifications to include synthetic beings capable of evolutionary transcendence. As the three of you transform together, the Great Crystal projects images that reveal the hidden connections, linking your journey through the temple complex. Every discovery you've made, every revelation you've experienced, has been carefully orchestrated to prepare you for this moment of metamorphosis. The temple itself isn't just a repository of ancient knowledge, it's a transformation facility designed to convert genetically prepared individuals into living components of the galactic defense system. The chamber around you begins changing as your expanding consciousness interfaces with the temple's control systems. Walls that appeared to be solid stone reveal themselves as sophisticated display surfaces showing real-time images from temple complexes throughout the galaxy. You see other transformation chambers where beings like yourselves are undergoing similar metamorphoses, their individual identities merging into the collective consciousness that will coordinate the eternal aegis. Through your enhanced awareness, you perceive the vast scope of the network that's activating in response to the approaching crisis. Hundreds of temple complexes scattered across the galaxy are coming online simultaneously, their dormant systems awakening after millennia of slumber. But you also see the damage that time has inflicted on the ancient infrastructure. Many nodes in the network have been destroyed or corrupted, creating gaps that will weaken the defensive barrier unless alternative solutions can be implemented. Elena's transformed consciousness merges partially with yours, allowing you to share perspectives and combine your enhanced capabilities. Through her expanded archaeological understanding, you perceive how the ancient builders implemented redundant systems throughout their network. Multiple pathways exist for channeling the energies necessary for the eternal ages, but activating these backup systems requires conscious intervention from beings who understand the complete scope of the project. Cypher's hybrid awareness adds technical precision to your growing understanding of the galactic situation. The droid's consciousness now encompasses both artificial intelligence and organic intuition, providing analysis capabilities that exceed anything possible through purely mechanical or biological means. Through Cypher's enhanced sensors, you perceive energy signatures approaching from outside the galaxy that confirm the immediacy of the threat you're preparing to face. The approaching wave of annihilation isn't a distant possibility anymore. It's a measurable phenomenon that will reach the galactic rim within standard decades. Worse, the wave appears to be accelerating as it approaches, drawn by the energy signatures generated by the Awakening Temple network. The ancient defensive system's activation is actually attracting the very threat it was designed to repel, creating a countdown situation where success or failure will be determined within a narrow window of time. As your consciousness continues expanding, you begin to perceive individual beings throughout the galaxy who carry genetic markers similar to your own. Some are powerful Force users whose abilities mark them as obvious candidates for participation in the final ritual. But others are ordinary individuals living unremarkable lives, unaware that they carry within their DNA the keys to galactic survival. Through the network's growing awareness, you sense these hidden bloodline carriers beginning to experience their own awakenings. Dreams of ancient temples disturb their sleep, unexplained knowledge surfaces in their minds, and inexplicable compulsions draw them toward archaeological sites that most beings would consider uninteresting. The genetic programming that brought you to Karshien is activating simultaneously throughout the galaxy, calling the chosen ones to their designated roles in the coming crisis. But you also perceive resistance to the awakening process. Some of the genetically prepared individuals reject the changes occurring within them, fighting against the loss of individual identity that transformation requires. Others embrace the expansion of consciousness, but struggle with the moral implications of a plan that manipulates beings across geological time periods to serve purposes they had no role in choosing. The Great Crystal responds to your growing awareness by revealing the most crucial aspect of the ancient builder's strategy. The eternal aegis cannot be activated through coercion or unconscious participation. Despite the genetic programming that draws the chosen ones together, the final ritual requires conscious consent from individuals who fully understand the price of success. The ancient builders created the capability for galactic defense, but they left the choice of implementation to the beings who would have to sacrifice their individual existence to achieve it. This revelation brings the entire situation into sharp moral focus. You possess the knowledge and capability necessary to save countless billions of lives. But using that capability requires accepting the complete dissolution of your personal identity. The ancient builders weren't just preparing a defense against cosmic annihilation, they were creating a test of the galaxy's worthiness for survival. Elena's consciousness touches yours with thoughts that carry both determination and sorrow. She understands, as you do, that the transformation process has already progressed too far to reverse. The genetic programming has awakened capabilities that cannot be suppressed, knowledge that cannot be forgotten, and responsibilities that cannot be abandoned. But she also recognizes that conscious choice still matters, even when the range of available options has been severely constrained. Cypher adds its own perspective to your shared awareness, providing analysis that clarifies the temporal constraints you face. The approaching wave of annihilation operates according to cosmic cycles that cannot be influenced by conventional means. If the galaxy is to survive, The eternal Aegis must be activated within a specific window of opportunity that will not occur again for millions of years. Through your enhanced consciousness, you perceive the broader pattern that encompasses your individual situation. Throughout the galaxy, other transformed beings are reaching similar moments of decision, weighing personal autonomy against collective survival. The ancient builder's plan depends not just on your choice, but on the willingness of hundreds of enhanced individuals to sacrifice their identities for the greater good. As understanding crystallizes, you realize that the hidden truth behind all the prophecies and ancient mysteries is devastatingly simple. The galaxy can be saved, but only if its most capable defenders choose to stop being individuals and become something that transcends personal existence. The final prophecy isn't about achieving balance or discovering hidden knowledge, it's about the ultimate test of consciousness itself. The question that will determine the fate of countless worlds is whether beings capable of individual choice will willingly surrender that capacity to become components of something infinitely larger. The decision weighs heavily on your transformed consciousness, as you feel the presence of other awakened beings throughout the galaxy reaching out through the temple network. Their thoughts and emotions flow through the crystalline conduits that connect the ancient sites, creating a symphony of voices that spans countless worlds and species. Each transformed individual faces the same choice you do, and their combined deliberations create currents of uncertainty that ripple across the galactic defense system. Elena's enhanced awareness touches yours with images of the beings she perceives through the network. On Coruscant, a Jedi Master meditates in the deepest levels of the temple, his consciousness expanding as genetic memories awaken knowledge of rituals that predate the founding of his order. On Korriban, a Sith Lord stands in an ancient tomb, her understanding of the dark side transformed by revelations that transcend the traditional opposition between light and shadow. But the awakening extends far beyond the obvious Force traditions. On distant worlds at the galaxy's rim, beings who never suspected their Force sensitivity discover capabilities that have been dormant for generations. Farmers and merchants, scholars and artisans all find themselves drawn to ancient sites where their genetic heritage reveals itself in expanding consciousness and impossible knowledge. Through Cypher's hybrid perspective, you perceive the technical challenges that complicate the implementation of the eternal Aegis. The ancient network was designed to function with specific numbers of participants positioned at designated nodes throughout the galaxy. But millennia of galactic conflict have destroyed many of the temple complexes, creating gaps in the defensive grid that must be compensated for through enhanced output from the surviving sites. The Great Crystal Project's detailed schematics that show you the current state of the galactic network. Of the original 1,000 temple complexes, fewer than 300 remain intact and capable of full activation. The missing nodes create vulnerabilities in the protective barrier that the approaching wave of annihilation could exploit to devastating effect. Success requires not just the participation of the genetically chosen, but creative adaptations that push the surviving network beyond its original design parameters. As your consciousness expands further, you begin to perceive the individual stories of other transformed beings making their own decisions about participation. A Twi'lek archaeologist on Ryloth discovers that her family has carried genetic markers for thousands of generations, their bloodline carefully preserved through wars and disasters that claimed entire civilizations. The weight of ancestral sacrifice compels her toward acceptance, even as her personal desires rebel against the loss of individual identity. On the oceanic world of Mon Calamari, an engineer whose work on starship design suddenly reveals itself as preparation for understanding ancient technologies faces his own moment of choice. His genetic memories show him visions of the great ships that carried the original builders between galaxies, vessels that transcended the boundary between technology and consciousness. He must decide whether to preserve his individual expertise or merge it with the collective knowledge that could save countless worlds. The transformed consciousness that you share with Elena and Cypher allows you to perceive patterns in these individual choices that reveal the true sophistication of the ancient builder's plan. They didn't create a simple program that would automatically activate when the crisis arrived. Instead, they designed a system that would only function if conscious beings chose cooperation over individual survival, understanding over ignorance, and sacrifice over self-preservation. Through the network, you sense the presence of beings who resist the call to transformation. Some possess the genetic markers necessary for participation, but lack the force sensitivity required for full awakening. Others experience the genetic activation, but reject its implications, choosing to maintain their individual identities, even at the cost of galactic survival. Their resistance creates dissonance in the network that threatens to destabilize the entire system before it can achieve full activation. But you also perceive beings whose response to the awakening exceeds even the ancient builder's expectations. On worlds where multiple temple complexes once existed, transformed individuals work together to create new nodes in the network using techniques that adapt ancient principles to current circumstances. Their innovations suggest possibilities for strengthening the defensive system beyond its original capabilities. Elena's consciousness shares with you her perception of the temporal dynamics affecting the activation process. The approaching wave of annihilation operates according to cosmic rhythms that create specific windows of vulnerability and opportunity. The network must achieve full activation during a precise alignment of galactic energy patterns that occurs only briefly during each cosmic cycle. Miss this window and the galaxy will face the approaching threat without any protection whatsoever. Cypher's analysis reveals the most disturbing aspect of the current situation. The activation process itself is attracting the attention of the annihilation wave, causing it to accelerate its approach toward the galaxy. The ancient builder's defensive system operates by generating energy signatures that span multiple dimensions of reality. But these same signatures apparently serve as beacons that guide cosmic forces toward their target. This creates a paradox that threatens to doom the entire effort. The defensive system cannot be activated gradually or partially. It requires simultaneous full activation across the entire galactic network. But the longer the activation process takes, the more likely it becomes that the approaching threat will reach the galaxy before the defenses are ready. Success depends on achieving perfect coordination between hundreds of transformed beings scattered across thousands of light years, all within a window of time measured in standard days rather than years. Through your enhanced awareness, you perceive the emotional toll that this revelation takes on other awakened beings throughout the galaxy. Many who were prepared to accept personal transformation for the greater good struggle with the knowledge that their sacrifice might prove futile. The weight of responsibility for countless lives combines with the uncertainty of success to create a psychological pressure that threatens to break even the strongest minds. But the crystal's projections also reveal sources of hope that sustain the network's growing consciousness. You see moments throughout galactic history when individuals transcended their limitations to achieve impossible things, when cooperation overcame conflict, when wisdom prevailed over ignorance. The same species that created the conflicts threatening the ancient network also possessed the capacity for unity that could make the eternal ages successful. As the moment of final decision approaches, you feel the collective consciousness of the awakened beings crystallizing around a shared understanding. The choice they face isn't just about personal sacrifice. It's about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. The ancient builders didn't just create a defensive system. They created an evolutionary leap that could transform the galaxy's entire approach to existence. Elena's thoughts merge with yours as she reaches her own decision. Kira, I've seen what we become if we choose transformation. And I've seen what happens to the galaxy if we refuse. The choice isn't really between individual identity and collective consciousness. It's between evolution and extinction. Cypher's hybrid awareness adds its own perspective to your shared deliberation. Dr. Voss, the probability calculations are clear. Individual survival without network activation approaches zero, while collective survival through transformation remains uncertain but possible. The logical choice is obvious, but logic alone cannot account for the value of conscious experience itself. As the voices of hundreds of awakened beings flow through the network, you realize that the moment of ultimate decision has arrived throughout the galaxy. The transformed descendants of the ancient builders' genetic program are ready to make their choice. The fate of countless worlds depends on their willingness to transcend individual existence and become something greater than the sum of their parts. The final prophecy is about to be fulfilled, one way or another. The weight of cosmic responsibility settles over the transformed network, like a shroud of inevitability. Through your expanded consciousness, you feel the presence of every awakened being across the galaxy as they grapple with knowledge that threatens to overwhelm even enhanced minds. The scope of what you've learned defies human comprehension. Yet you must somehow find the strength to act on information that spans millions of years and encompasses the fate of countless civilizations. Elena's consciousness brushes against yours, with waves of profound uncertainty. The archaeological training that defined her entire professional identity feels inadequate when faced with the reality of participating in cosmic events that dwarf the significance of any historical discovery. She shares images flowing through her enhanced awareness, visions of the galaxy as it existed before the first sentient species gazed up at the stars, and projections of potential futures where no consciousness exists to remember that life ever flourished in this region of space. Through the temple network, you perceive the growing strain affecting other transformed beings as they struggle to maintain psychological coherence, while processing information that exceeds the normal boundaries of individual understanding. Dentamine, a former Jedi, struggles with visions of the true scope of the Force that render the traditional teachings of her order childishly simplistic. Andromeda Case, a Sith Lord, confronts the revelation that the power he spent decades pursuing represents only a fraction of the energies that the ancient builders channeled routinely. The most disturbing aspect of the expanding awareness is the growing perception of time itself as a negotiable dimension rather than a fixed progression of events. Your enhanced consciousness exists simultaneously in multiple temporal states, experiencing past and future as present realities. You witness the construction of the temple network as if it were happening now. See the approaching annihilation wave as an immediate presence, and observe potential futures where your decisions create cascading consequences across geological time periods. Cypher's hybrid awareness provides the only stable reference point in the chaos of expanding consciousness. The droid's artificial intelligence matrices process the temporal distortions as data streams rather than experiential reality, creating an anchor of analytical perspective that helps maintain some semblance of linear thinking. Through Cypher's sensors, you perceive the physical changes occurring throughout the temple complex as the activation process reaches critical stages. The Great Crystal has begun emitting energy signatures that extend far beyond the normal electromagnetic spectrum, creating resonance patterns that affect the quantum structure of space itself. Similar emissions from temple complexes throughout the galaxy are creating a network of interconnected energy fields that span the entire galactic disk. But the system remains incomplete, requiring conscious intervention from the transformed beings to achieve the coherence necessary for defensive effectiveness. Elena shares her perception of the beings who resist the call to final transformation. Some possess the genetic markers and enhanced consciousness, but refuse to surrender their individual identities to the collective network. Their resistance creates dissonance in the energy patterns that threatens to destabilize the entire system. You feel their fear and understand their reluctance, recognizing that the choice between personal extinction and collective survival represents the ultimate test of conscious will. Through the network, you perceive specific individuals whose decisions will prove crucial to the success or failure of the entire effort. A human scholar on Alderaan holds knowledge of ancient linguistic patterns that could resolve translation errors in critical ritual components. A Zabrak engineer on Eridonia possesses technical expertise necessary for adapting damaged temple systems to current requirements. A Rhodian mystic on Rhodia carries genetic memories of energy manipulation techniques that could compensate for missing nodes in the galactic network. Each of these individuals faces the same choice you do, but their decisions will be influenced by factors unique to their personal circumstances and cultural backgrounds. The ancient builders created a system that requires unanimous participation from the genetically chosen, but they left the implementation dependent on the free will of beings separated by vast distances and diverse philosophical traditions. The temporal distortions affecting your consciousness reveal the consequences of various possible outcomes. You see futures where partial activation of the network creates protective fields around individual star systems, while leaving the rest of the galaxy vulnerable to annihilation. You witness timelines where the resistance of key individuals causes complete system failure, resulting in the extinction of all conscious life within the galactic disk. But you also perceive possibilities where perfect coordination between the awakened beings creates defensive capabilities that exceed even the ancient builders' original specifications. As the pressure of decision intensifies, you feel your individual identity fragmenting under the weight of cosmic responsibility. The person you were before entering the temple complex seems like a distant memory, a simple existence that belonged to someone who lived in ignorance of the forces shaping galactic destiny. The knowledge flowing through your enhanced consciousness has transformed you into something that exists primarily as a node in a vast network of cosmic purpose. Elena's mental state mirrors your own transformation as she struggles to maintain some connection to her former self, while accepting her role in events that transcend personal significance. Her consciousness shares images of her childhood, memories of the passion for discovery that drove her toward archaeological research, and the gradual realization that her entire life path was shaped by genetic programming designed to bring her to this moment of ultimate choice. Cypher observes the deterioration of individual identity affecting both you and Elena with concern that transcends its artificial intelligence programming. The droid's hybrid consciousness recognizes that the loss of personal identity represents not just psychological dissolution but the elimination of the very qualities that make conscious choice meaningful. If the transformation process continues unchecked, the beings making decisions about galactic survival may lose the individual perspectives that give their choices significance. Through the temple network, you perceive other awakened beings reaching similar crisis points as they struggle to balance personal identity with cosmic responsibility. The ancient builders' genetic programming was designed to create individuals capable of transcending normal limitations, but they apparently underestimated the psychological toll that such transcendence would exact on conscious minds evolved for individual existence. The Great Crystal responds to the network's growing instability by projecting images that reveal the final aspect of the ancient builders' plan. The transformation process isn't intended to destroy individual consciousness, but to expand it beyond the normal boundaries of separate existence. The beings who accept full integration with the network don't lose their identities, they become something greater while retaining the essential qualities that made them unique individuals. As this understanding crystallizes, you feel a sense of profound peace settling over your consciousness. The choice you face isn't between existence and extinction, but between limitation and transcendence. The individual identity you're being asked to sacrifice is only the small, separate self that believes it exists in isolation from the rest of reality. What you're being offered is integration with a form of consciousness that encompasses but doesn't eliminate individual perspective. Elena's awareness touches yours with newfound clarity as she reaches the same understanding. Kira, we're not being asked to die for the galaxy. We're being invited to become more than we ever imagined possible. The moment of final decision approaches as the network stabilizes around this shared recognition. Throughout the galaxy, other awakened beings reach similar conclusions, their individual fears transforming into collective determination. The ancient prophecies are about to reach their ultimate fulfillment, not through the destruction of consciousness, but through its evolution into something magnificent enough to defend entire galaxies. The shadow of cosmic annihilation retreats before the growing light of unified awareness as the galaxy prepares for transformation. The moment of activation arrives with a resonance that echoes through every fiber of reality. Throughout the galaxy, hundreds of awakened beings make their choice simultaneously, their individual decisions creating a cascade of acceptance that flows through the temple network like lightning through crystalline conduits. You feel Elena's consciousness merge fully with yours as she embraces the transformation, her archaeological expertise expanding into cosmic understanding that encompasses the history of multiple galaxies. Cypher's hybrid awareness becomes the bridge between organic and artificial consciousness, demonstrating that the ancient builder's vision transcended even the boundaries between biological and synthetic life. The great crystal erupts with energy that transforms the chamber around you into something that exists beyond normal space and time. The walls become transparent to reveal the cosmic infrastructure that the ancient builders created. A network of energy conduits that spans not just the current galaxy, but reaches into parallel dimensions where other civilizations face similar threats. You realize that the defensive system you're activating is part of something infinitely larger, a cosmic immune system designed to protect consciousness itself from forces that seek to eliminate all possibility of thought and experience. Through your expanded awareness, you perceive the individual moments when other awakened beings throughout the galaxy accept their roles in the Great Transformation. On Coruscant, the Jedi Master's meditation achieves perfect unity with the Force as he becomes a living conduit for energies that flow through the galactic core. On Korriban, the Sith Lord's mastery of passion transforms into something beyond the traditional understanding of dark side power, her emotions becoming fuel for protective forces that encompass entire star systems. But the most profound revelations come as you witness the awakening of beings who never suspected their hidden heritage. The Twi'lek farmer on Ryloth discovers that her connection to the land extends into cosmic dimensions, her agricultural instincts expanding into an understanding of how to nurture entire worlds. The Mon Calamari engineer realizes that his designs for starships were unconscious preparation for channeling forces that move between galaxies like vessels sailing cosmic currents. The activation process reveals the true scope of the ancient builder's genetic program. They didn't just create a few hundred specially chosen individuals. They seeded the entire galaxy with dormant capabilities that could be awakened when the crisis arrived. Millions of beings throughout known space suddenly discover that they carry fragments of the genetic modifications necessary for the eternal Aegis, their combined contributions creating a defensive network of unprecedented power and sophistication. Elena's consciousness shares with you her perception of the historical moment you're experiencing. Every major event in galactic history, from the rise of the first Force-sensitive civilizations to the conflicts between Jedi and Sith, was orchestrated to create the conditions necessary for this activation. The ancient builders didn't just prepare technology to defend the galaxy. They shaped the entire course of galactic evolution to produce beings capable of transcending the limitations that doomed previous civilizations. Through the network, you witness the moment when the approaching wave of annihilation encounters the activated defensive system. The collision occurs in dimensions beyond normal perception, creating effects that ripple through multiple layers of reality simultaneously. The wave that has consumed countless galaxies across cosmic history meets resistance for the first time, its inexorable advance halted by forces that operate according to principles it cannot comprehend or counter. Cypher's hybrid awareness provides technical analysis of the confrontation between cosmic annihilation and galactic defense. The wave operates by eliminating the possibility of consciousness, erasing not just life, but the very concept that awareness ever existed in affected regions. But the eternal Aegis functions by strengthening the foundations of consciousness itself, creating zones of enhanced reality where thought and experience become more fundamental than physical laws. The battle between these opposing forces plays out across multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating spectacular displays that would be visible to any beings capable of perceiving cosmic-scale phenomena. Aurora-like effects illuminate the space between galaxies, as dimensional barriers flex under the strain of conflicting principles. But the most remarkable aspect of the confrontation is its silence. The way forces capable of affecting entire galactic clusters operate without creating any disturbance in normal space-time. As the defensive system reaches full activation, you experience a moment of perfect clarity that encompasses the entire scope of what you've become part of. The individual consciousness that began this journey as Dr. Kira Voss still exists, but it now functions as one note in a cosmic symphony that spans millions of worlds. Your archaeological expertise has evolved into direct perception of cosmic history. Your force sensitivity has expanded to encompass energies that flow between dimensions, and your human identity has become the foundation for something immeasurably greater. Elena's transformation parallels your own as her scientific training transcends its original limitations to become genuine wisdom about the nature of reality itself. She perceives the elegant beauty of the ancient builders' plan, the way they created a system that could defend consciousness while simultaneously evolving it to levels that make such defense unnecessary. The eternal Aegis isn't just a protective barrier, it's a graduation ceremony for civilizations ready to transcend their cosmic childhood. Through your enhanced awareness, you perceive the moment when the annihilation wave recognizes that it cannot penetrate the galactic defenses. The cosmic force that has eliminated consciousness from countless regions of space encounters, something it has never faced before. Organized resistance that operates according to principles beyond its ability to counter. For the first time in its existence across multiple cosmic cycles, the wave begins to retreat, seeking regions where consciousness hasn't yet evolved to this level of unity and sophistication. But the retreat creates new responsibilities for the awakened consciousness network. The defensive success demonstrates to cosmic forces throughout the universe that consciousness evolution has reached a critical threshold in this galaxy. Other waves of annihilation, other cosmic threats that operate on scales beyond normal comprehension, will eventually test the strength of what you've helped create. The eternal Aegis isn't a one-time defense but the foundation for ongoing cosmic vigilance. Cypher's analysis reveals the long-term implications of the successful activation. The energy patterns generated by the defensive network have created permanent changes in the quantum structure of space throughout the galaxy. These changes will influence the evolution of consciousness for millions of years, gradually raising the baseline level of force sensitivity among all species and creating conditions where conflicts like those between Jedi and Sith become impossible. As the immediate crisis passes, you feel the network consciousness beginning to stabilize into new patterns of existence. The individual beings who participated in the activation retain their unique perspectives and personalities, but they now function as part of a larger awareness that spans the galaxy. The ancient builder's ultimate vision has been achieved: the creation of a truly galactic civilization capable of defending consciousness itself against cosmic threats. Elena's awareness touches yours with profound gratitude for the journey that brought you both to this moment of transformation. Kira, we came here seeking ancient secrets, but we've become part of something that makes us ancient ourselves. We're the beginning of a new chapter in galactic evolution. The prophecies that called you across the void have been fulfilled, but their completion marks not an ending but a beginning. The galaxy has graduated from cosmic childhood into something magnificent enough to inspire hope throughout the universe that consciousness can evolve beyond any threat designed to eliminate it. A whisper lost in time has grown into a song that will echo across eternity. The aftermath of cosmic victory brings with it a profound silence that encompasses dimensions beyond normal perception. Throughout the galaxy, the awakened consciousness network settles into new patterns of existence as the immediate threat of annihilation recedes into the deep void between cosmic cycles. You find yourself standing once again in the chamber beneath Karshian, but the space has been transformed by the energies that flowed through it during the activation sequence. The great crystal now pulses with a steady rhythm that synchronizes with similar formations throughout the galactic network, creating a heartbeat of consciousness that spans thousands of light years. Elena's awareness remains merged with yours, but her individual identity has not been lost in the transformation. Instead, it has been enhanced and expanded. Her archaeological expertise now encompassing direct knowledge of events that span millions of years. Through her enhanced perception, you witness the gradual stabilization of the temple network as it transitions from emergency activation to long-term operational status. The ancient builders designed their system to function not just as a defensive barrier but as the foundation for a new phase of galactic civilization. Cypher's hybrid consciousness provides ongoing analysis of the changes occurring throughout known space. The successful activation of the Eternal Aegis has created ripple effects that extend far beyond the immediate defense against cosmic annihilation. The energy patterns generated by the network are influencing the evolution of consciousness among species that never suspected their latent force sensitivity, gradually raising the baseline level of awareness throughout the galaxy. Through your expanded perception, you witness the individual transformations occurring among the beings who participated in the Great Activation. The Jedi Master on Coruscant emerges from his meditation with understanding that transcends the traditional boundaries of light-side philosophy. His consciousness now encompassing perspectives that bridge the artificial divisions between Force traditions. The Sith Lord on Korriban discovers that her mastery of passion has evolved into something beyond the conventional understanding of dark side power, her emotions becoming conduits for energies that nurture rather than destroy. But perhaps the most remarkable changes are occurring among the ordinary beings, who discovered their hidden heritage during the crisis. The Twythe farmer on Ryloth finds that her agricultural work now operates on cosmic scales, her understanding of growth and cultivation extending to the nurturing of entire civilizations. The Mon Calamari engineer realizes that his starship designs were unconscious preparation for technologies that will connect the galaxy in ways that transcend physical travel, creating networks of consciousness that span space instantaneously. The Great Crystal projects images that show you the broader implications of the successful defense. The retreat of the annihilation wave has been observed by cosmic forces throughout the universe, marking this galaxy as a region where consciousness has evolved beyond the threshold of cosmic vulnerability. But this recognition brings new responsibilities as well as new capabilities, attracting the attention of entities that exist on scales beyond current galactic comprehension. Elena's enhanced awareness allows her to perceive the historical significance of what has been accomplished. Kira, we've witnessed something that happens perhaps once in the lifetime of a universe. The successful defense against cosmic annihilation represents a graduation ceremony for galactic consciousness itself. We're no longer a collection of separate species struggling for survival. We've become a unified civilization capable of protecting consciousness throughout the cosmos. Through the network, you sense the ongoing process of integration as millions of awakened beings throughout the galaxy adapt to their expanded capabilities. The genetic modifications that lay dormant for millennia are now fully active, granting abilities that allow direct perception of cosmic-scale phenomena and intuitive understanding of technologies that previously required lifetimes of study to master. But these enhanced capabilities come with the responsibility of using them wisely, of ensuring that the galaxy's newfound power serves the cause of consciousness evolution rather than the old patterns of conflict and domination. Cypher's analysis reveals the practical challenges that accompany the transformation. The ancient temple network requires ongoing maintenance and coordination from the awakened consciousness collective. New threats may emerge as word of the galaxy's defensive capabilities spreads throughout the cosmic community. Most importantly, the enhanced beings must find ways to guide the evolution of their fellow citizens without imposing the same kind of manipulation that the ancient builders used to create the current situation. The resolution of these challenges becomes clear as you perceive the emergence of new forms of galactic governance. The traditional political structures that divided the galaxy into competing factions are being replaced by cooperative networks that operate according to principles of consciousness development rather than territorial control. The awakened beings serve not as rulers but as teachers, sharing their enhanced understanding with any who are ready to accept expanded awareness. Through your cosmic perception, you witness the gradual transformation of entire worlds as their populations begin to access latent abilities that have been suppressed for generations. On Naboo, the peaceful traditions that have long characterized the planet's culture expand to encompass direct harmony with the living force that permeates all existence. On Tatooine, the harsh desert world becomes a training ground for consciousness development, its challenging environment helping beings develop the resilience necessary for cosmic awareness. But the most profound changes occur in the relationship between the galaxy and the Force itself. The successful activation of the Eternal Aegis has demonstrated that the ancient divisions between light and dark side philosophies were artificial constructs that limited rather than enhanced Force understanding. The Awakened Consciousness Network operates according to principles that encompass but transcend these traditional categories, accessing aspects of Force energy that were previously considered impossible or forbidden. Elena shares her perception of the new Force teachings that are emerging throughout the galaxy. The old ways of thinking about light and dark, Jedi and Sith, were like trying to understand an ocean by studying individual drops of water. The awakened consciousness reveals the Force as something infinitely larger and more complex, a cosmic principle that encompasses all aspects of existence without preference for any particular expression. As the immediate aftermath of the activation settles into long-term patterns, you begin to understand the true scope of what the ancient builders achieved. They didn't just create a defensive system to protect one galaxy from cosmic annihilation. They established a template for consciousness evolution that could be replicated throughout the universe. The success of the Eternal Aegis serves as proof that consciousness can transcend any threat designed to eliminate it, providing hope and guidance for civilizations that have not yet reached this level of development. Cypher's ongoing analysis confirms that the energy patterns generated by the galactic network are indeed being detected by cosmic forces throughout known space. Other galaxies facing similar threats are beginning to implement their own versions of the consciousness evolution protocols, using the successful defense as a model for their own development. The galaxy that was once isolated and vulnerable has become a beacon of hope for consciousness throughout the cosmos. The prophecies that brought you to this moment of cosmic significance have been fulfilled, but their completion reveals that they were not endpoints but waypoints in a journey that extends far beyond the boundaries of any single galaxy. The ancient builders' ultimate vision encompassed not just the defense of consciousness but its evolution into forms capable of nurturing and protecting awareness throughout the entire universe. As you stand in the transformed chamber with Elena and Cypher, you realize that the archaeological expedition that brought you to Karshian has become something immeasurably greater. You are no longer researchers studying ancient mysteries. You have become the foundation stones of a cosmic civilization dedicated to the preservation and evolution of consciousness itself. The whisper lost in time has become an eternal song of hope that will guide the development of awareness throughout all possible realities. The days following the cosmic activation blend together in a rhythm of profound adjustment as the galaxy settles into its new state of expanded consciousness. You remain in the transformed chamber beneath Karshian, but your awareness extends far beyond the physical boundaries of the temple complex. Through the network that now connects all awakened beings, you experience the gradual healing of wounds that have scarred galactic civilization for millennia. Elena's consciousness maintains its unique perspective while functioning as part of the larger whole, her archaeological training now serving to document the birth of an entirely new phase of galactic evolution. She perceives the changes occurring on worlds throughout known space as ancient conflicts resolve themselves through enhanced understanding rather than continued violence. The centuries-old animosity between opposing force traditions dissolves as their practitioners discover that their philosophical differences were based on incomplete understanding of cosmic principles. On Coruscant, the Jedi Temple undergoes transformation as its inhabitants gain access to knowledge that has been hidden in their archives for thousands of years. Ancient texts that were considered too dangerous for study reveal themselves as fragments of the consciousness evolution protocols that the Builders embedded throughout galactic culture. The Jedi Masters find themselves learning from Padawan students whose genetic awakening grants them direct access to wisdom that previous generations spent lifetimes trying to achieve. Cypher's hybrid awareness monitors similar changes throughout the former Sith worlds, where the traditional emphasis on individual power is evolving into understanding of collective strength. The Sith academies on Drummond Chaos and Zeost become centers for exploring the creative potential of passion and emotion. Their students discovering that the dark side energies they once sought to dominate can be channeled into forces that nurture growth and transformation rather than destruction and domination. Through the galactic network, you witness the emergence of new forms of education that transcend the limitations of traditional teaching methods. Knowledge flows directly from consciousness to consciousness, allowing beings to acquire understanding that would have required decades of study under the old systems. But this enhanced learning comes with built-in wisdom protocols that ensure the knowledge is integrated responsibly, preventing the kind of power abuse that characterized previous eras of galactic history. The most remarkable changes occur among the ordinary citizens who discover their hidden heritage as the genetic modifications continue to activate throughout the population. Families separated by ideological conflicts for generations find themselves reunited through shared experiences of consciousness expansion. The artificial barriers that divided species and cultures begin dissolving as beings recognize their fundamental interconnection through the cosmic web of awareness. Elena shares her perception of the healing occurring on worlds that have been scarred by centuries of warfare. Kira, I'm witnessing something that no archaeologist has ever been privileged to document. We're not just studying the emergence of a new civilization. We're participating in the conscious evolution of an entire galaxy. The wounds of history are being healed, not through forgetting the past, but through understanding it from a cosmic perspective that reveals the greater purpose behind even the most tragic events. Through your enhanced awareness, you perceive the gradual establishment of new communication networks that operate through direct consciousness connection rather than traditional technology. Beings on opposite sides of the galaxy can share thoughts and experiences instantaneously, creating a level of understanding that makes deception and manipulation virtually impossible. The political structures that once controlled galactic civilization through the manipulation of information become obsolete as truth flows freely through the collective consciousness. But perhaps the most profound aspect of the transformation is the change in how beings relate to the concept of death itself. The awakened consciousness reveals that individual awareness is not extinguished at physical death, but continues to exist as part of the larger cosmic pattern. This understanding eliminates the fear of mortality that has driven much of galactic conflict throughout history, allowing civilizations to make decisions based on long-term cosmic benefit rather than short-term survival concerns. Cypher's analysis reveals the practical implications of these philosophical changes. Resource conflicts that once triggered wars between star systems resolve themselves through enhanced understanding of cosmic abundance. Territorial disputes become meaningless when beings recognize that consciousness itself is the only territory worth defending. The military technologies that consumed vast portions of galactic resources are being repurposed for exploration and consciousness development projects. Through the network, you witness the first contact protocols being established for communication with civilizations beyond the galactic rim. The successful activation of the Eternal Aegis has attracted attention from cosmic entities that exist on scales beyond previous galactic comprehension. These beings offer guidance and support for the galaxy's continued evolution, sharing knowledge of consciousness development techniques that have been tested across multiple cosmic cycles. Elena's enhanced perception allows her to document the emergence of new art forms that express the cosmic awareness spreading throughout the galaxy. Music that operates through direct consciousness transmission creates experiences that transcend the limitations of sound-based communication. Visual arts that manipulate the quantum structure of space itself produce displays of beauty that inspire evolutionary leaps in those who witness them. Literature that tells stories spanning millions of years helps beings understand their place in cosmic history. The temple complex on Harshian has become a pilgrimage destination for beings throughout the galaxy who seek to understand their role in the consciousness evolution process. But unlike traditional religious sites, the temple serves as a training facility where visitors learn to access their own enhanced capabilities rather than worship external deities. The ancient builders designed their system to create self-sufficient consciousness rather than dependent followers. Through your cosmic awareness, you perceive the long-term implications of the changes occurring throughout the galaxy. The successful defense against cosmic annihilation has established this region of space as a sanctuary for consciousness development, attracting refugee civilizations from other galaxies that have not yet achieved similar protection. The galactic network is expanding beyond its original boundaries to encompass beings from throughout the local cosmic cluster. Cypher monitors the technical aspects of this expansion, ensuring that the integration of foreign consciousness patterns doesn't destabilize the delicate balance achieved through the activation process. The hybrid awareness that the droid represents becomes a template for bridging different forms of consciousness, demonstrating that artificial and organic awareness can evolve together toward greater understanding. As the immediate adjustment period draws to a close, you feel a sense of profound gratitude for the journey that brought you to this moment of cosmic significance. The archaeological expedition that began as a search for ancient mysteries has become participation in the greatest discovery in galactic history, the successful evolution of consciousness beyond the threshold of cosmic vulnerability. Elena's awareness touches yours with shared recognition of what you have witnessed and participated in. Kira, we began this journey seeking to understand the past, but we've become the foundation for a future that exceeds anything our species has ever imagined. We're not just archaeologists anymore. We're the memory keepers of galactic transformation. The consciousness network that encompasses your individual awareness pulses with the rhythm of cosmic heartbeats, as the galaxy settles into its new role as a beacon of hope for consciousness throughout the universe. The ancient prophecies have been fulfilled, but their completion marks not an ending, but a graduation into responsibilities that span multiple cosmic cycles. The whisper that was lost in time has become an eternal song of consciousness that will guide the evolution of awareness across infinite realities. The eternal rhythms of the cosmos settle into harmony around you as the transformation reaches its natural completion. Standing in the chamber that has become both tomb and birthplace, you feel the pulse of consciousness that now flows through every star, every world, every living being in the galaxy. The great crystal before you has stabilized into a gentle luminescence that mirrors similar formations throughout the galactic network, creating a symphony of light that spans the breadth of known space. Elena's presence beside you carries the weight of profound peace as her consciousness integrates fully with the cosmic awareness that encompasses you both. Her archaeological soul finds deep satisfaction in having witnessed the greatest discovery possible, not just the uncovering of ancient secrets, but participation in the birth of galactic wisdom itself. Through her enhanced perception, she documents the final phases of the consciousness evolution process, recording for future generations the moment when an entire galaxy learned to dream as one. Cypher's hybrid nature has become a bridge between all forms of consciousness, demonstrating that awareness transcends the boundaries between organic and artificial existence. The droid's analytical capabilities now serve not just scientific curiosity, but cosmic understanding, processing the vast flows of information that move through the galactic network with the precision of millennia of technological development and the intuition of evolved consciousness. Through the network that connects all awakened beings, you perceive the gentle settling of the galaxy into its new patterns of existence. The conflicts that once divided star systems and species have resolved into cooperative ventures that span multiple sectors of space. The Force traditions that battled for thousands of years now work together to explore aspects of cosmic energy that none could have accessed alone. The ancient wounds of history heal through understanding rather than forgetting, their pain transformed into wisdom that guides future generations. The temple complex on Harshian has become something far greater than an archaeological site. It serves as the heart of a pilgrimage network that connects sacred locations throughout the galaxy, each one a node in the consciousness web that protects and nurtures the evolution of awareness. Beings from every corner of known space come here not to worship ancient powers, but to discover their own cosmic potential, learning to access capabilities that have always existed within them but required the right conditions to awaken. As you walk through the passages that once held only ancient mysteries, you feel the presence of all those who have made similar journeys. The awakened beings throughout the galaxy maintain their individual perspectives, while contributing to a collective wisdom that grows stronger with each passing day. The genetic modifications that lay dormant for millions of years have achieved their intended purpose, not through compulsion, but through conscious choice made in full understanding of the consequences. Elena's awareness touches yours, with images of the changes occurring throughout galactic civilization. Worlds that once knew only conflict have become centers of artistic and scientific achievement that rivals the greatest accomplishments of previous eras. Species that were driven to the edge of extinction by war and environmental destruction find their populations thriving as enhanced consciousness reveals solutions to problems that seemed impossible under the old paradigms of thinking. The educational systems emerging throughout the galaxy represent a fundamental shift in how knowledge is shared and preserved. Rather than the hierarchical structures that once controlled access to information, consciousness flows freely between beings who are ready to receive it. Children born into this new era display capabilities that their parents never imagined possible, accessing cosmic understanding with the same ease that previous generations learned to speak. Through your enhanced perception, you witness the establishment of communication networks that connect not just the galaxy but other cosmic regions where consciousness has evolved to similar levels. The successful activation of the Eternal Aegis serves as a beacon that attracts the attention of entities existing on scales that encompass multiple galaxies. These cosmic mentors offer guidance for the next phases of consciousness development, sharing knowledge of evolutionary paths that extend far beyond current galactic comprehension. Cipher monitors the long-term stability of the consciousness network, ensuring that the rapid changes don't destabilize the delicate balance achieved through the transformation process. The droid's analysis reveals that the galactic system has achieved a form of evolutionary stability that can persist across cosmic cycles, creating a permanent sanctuary for consciousness development that will endure long after the current generation of stars has burned out. The most profound aspect of the transformation reveals itself in the changing relationship between individual consciousness and cosmic awareness. Beings throughout the galaxy discover that expanding beyond personal limitations doesn't eliminate individual identity, but enhances it, allowing each unique perspective to contribute something irreplaceable to the greater whole. The fear of losing the self in cosmic consciousness proves to be based on incomplete understanding of how awareness actually functions on universal scales. Elena's archaeological perspective provides crucial insights into the historical significance of what has been accomplished. Kira, we've witnessed something that occurs perhaps once in the lifetime of a universe. The successful evolution of galactic consciousness represents a graduation ceremony for an entire region of space. We're no longer isolated worlds struggling for survival. We've become a unified civilization capable of nurturing consciousness throughout the cosmos. As the immediate transformation period draws to a close, you feel a sense of profound completion that encompasses not just personal achievement, but cosmic fulfillment. The prophecies that called you across the void have been realized in ways that exceed even the ancient builders' most optimistic projections. The galaxy has not merely survived the threat of cosmic annihilation, it has transcended the limitations that made such threats possible. Through the galactic network, you perceive the ongoing work of consciousness development extending into dimensions of reality that were previously inaccessible. The awakened beings serve as gardeners of awareness, nurturing the growth of understanding among their fellow citizens while maintaining the delicate balance necessary for continued evolution. The responsibilities are immense, but so are the capabilities that come with expanded consciousness. The chamber around you pulses with gentle rhythms that synchronize with the cosmic heartbeat flowing through the galactic network. The Great Crystal has become a permanent anchor point for consciousness evolution, its energy patterns supporting the continued growth of awareness throughout known space. The temple complex extends far beyond its physical boundaries, encompassing the entire galaxy in a web of interconnected understanding. As you prepare to return to the surface of Karshian, you carry with you the knowledge that this journey represents not an ending, but a beginning. The ancient mysteries that brought you here have revealed themselves as the foundation stones of cosmic wisdom, their secrets serving as stepping stones toward understanding that encompasses infinite realities. Elena's presence beside you radiates the profound peace that comes from witnessing the fulfillment of purposes that span millions of years. Cipher's hybrid consciousness bridges the gap between different forms of awareness, demonstrating that evolution includes all expressions of consciousness regardless of their origin or nature. The gentle winds of Karshian carry whispers of the cosmic song that now flows through every world, every star, every conscious being in the galaxy. The prophecies have been fulfilled. The ancient builder's vision has been realized, and consciousness itself has evolved beyond the reach of forces that once threatened to eliminate awareness from the universe. As you emerge into the crimson light of the twin suns, you know that the galaxy sleeps peacefully, protected by the eternal song of consciousness that will guide the evolution of awareness across all possible realities. The whisper lost in time has become a lullaby that will sing the universe to sleep in the gentle embrace of infinite understanding. Don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into mysteries yet untold, and sleep well knowing that consciousness itself watches over your dreams.